The chaos that unfolded during Indiana Fever's showdown with the Connecticut Sun was supposed to be another page in Caitlin Clark's fairytale comeback. It was supposed to be the moment where the Fever cemented themselves as rising contenders, where Clark's three-point magic would headline the sports pages, and where the WNBA could finally celebrate a player single-handedly rewriting their audience metrics. But instead, it became something darker, uglier, something that forced the Fever, their fans, and most notably their head coach Stephanie White to say enough is enough. Because on that night, the Indiana Fever didn't just face an opponent. They faced an officiating system that looked less like impartial governance and more like institutional sabotage. From the very first possession, you could feel the tension. It wasn't just basketball. It was something meaner, something personal. Elbows flew, bodies crashed, and whistles stayed silent. But what tipped this already boiling situation into a full-scale firestorm wasn't just the physicality. It was who that physicality targeted, and how completely the referees ignored it. Caitlin Clark, the undisputed face of the WNBA's future, wasn't just roughed up. She was hunted. And every time she got knocked down, shoved, or even clawed at, the referees turned a blind eye. What made it unbearable wasn't just the violence, it was the silence. And eventually, that silence triggered a reckoning. Stephanie White stepped into the post-game press conference like a coach who had seen too much, lost her patience, and refused to play by the league's unwritten rules anymore. No canned responses. No, we'll take it one game at a time. What came out of her mouth was a full-blown indictment of the WNBA's officiating and its negligence in protecting its most valuable player. She didn't tiptoe around the issue. She slammed the table with her words, demanding accountability, not just for Clark, but for the integrity of the entire sport. She called it egregious. She called it dangerous. And more importantly, she called it predictable. Because this wasn't the first time Caitlin Clark had been subjected to borderline assault under the guise of physical basketball. It was just the most glaring. You don't have to dig far back to remember how often Clark's name gets tangled in headlines that have nothing to do with her talent and everything to do with the bruises she walks away with. Kennedy Carter's WWE-style shove. DJ Carrington's eye poke. Sophie Cunningham getting battered like she was in a brawl instead of a basketball game. And now, JCS Sheldon and Marina Mabrey added their names to that shameful list, delivering hits that would have earned red cards in any other professional league, only to skate away untouched while Clark, the victim, was somehow slapped with a technical foul. Yes, a technical. For what? For getting her face clawed and her body checked like she wandered into a football practice instead of a WNBA court? That's not just tone-deaf officiating. That's professional gaslighting. And it wasn't just Stephanie White who saw it. The fans saw it. The commentators saw it. Even seasoned analysts, who typically keep their opinions measured and politically correct, couldn't hide their disgust. Social media exploded. Clips of the hits were replayed with growing outrage. And one question echoed across every timeline. How is this okay? It wasn't just a bad call. It was a pattern, one that's been growing more obvious with every game Caitlin Clark suits up for. And the league's response? A shrug. Maybe a quiet statement if things get too loud. But no fines. No suspensions. No acknowledgement that their brightest star is being systematically targeted while the referees stand idly by. Stephanie White knew this was her moment to draw the line. She pointed out, with cold clarity, that if the league had handled business earlier, if they had protected their players instead of protecting reputations, this whole disaster could have been avoided. And when she asked the question no one else dared to speak on record, would the NBA let LeBron James get tossed to the ground and then punish him for being hit? She wasn't just defending Caitlin Clark. She was daring the WNBA to admit what everyone already knew. The game has evolved. Players are faster, stronger, more dynamic. The league is bigger. The crowds are louder. The stakes are higher. And the referees? They're still stuck in 2008. They can't keep up. They're failing at the most basic responsibility, keeping the game fair, safe, and respectable. And when that failure becomes visible, when it becomes undeniable, it doesn't just hurt the athletes. It discredits the league. Because right now, the headlines aren't about Caitlin Clark's buzzer beaters. They're not about how the Fever clawed their way into contention. They're about missed calls, hard fouls, and viral footage of a superstar getting body-checked while the officials check their shoelaces. And Clark? She never flinched. Even after being smacked in the face, dropped to the court, and handed a technical foul for the crime of surviving it, she rose. She rose, stepped back behind the arc, stared down the same defender who had targeted her, and buried a deep three-pointer like she was sealing the game in blood. That shot wasn't just 3 points. It was a declaration: you can hit me. You can shove me. But I'm still going to torch you. The crowd erupted. Twitter lit up. And then the Fever's official account posted it in glorious slow motion, a cinematic moment of retaliation, not with fists, but with pure skill. No words. No hashtags. Just a stare, a flick of the wrist, and a net that didn't even move. And still, it wasn't over. JCS Sheldon, apparently unsatisfied with her MMA audition, went after Sophie Cunningham next. But this time, she picked the wrong target. Cunningham, who's quietly emerged as the Fever's enforcer, protector, and no-nonsense operator, didn't blink. She returned fire with a flagrant so precise it looked like it was scripted. No cheap shot. No malice. Just a clear message: touch Clark again, and you'll deal with me. And the fans? They erupted not with shock, but with applause. Because they knew. Everyone in the building knew. This wasn't just revenge, it was justice. Back in the post-game press room, Stephanie White's face said it all. She didn't want to be there. She didn't want to be delivering another sermon about how bad officiating was endangering her players. But she had no choice. Because when a league fails to protect its stars, it falls to the coaches, to the players, to send the signal. And White, she sent it loud and clear. The WNBA is facing a crisis of credibility. The biggest name in the game is being targeted on a weekly basis. The league's own fans are turning their frustration into movements. Hashtags like #ProtectCaitlin Clark trend faster than game recaps. And the referees? They're either complicit or clueless. Either way, the damage is done. Let's not sugarcoat it. Without Caitlin Clark, this league doesn't have the momentum it has now. The sold-out arenas, the primetime broadcasts, the skyrocketing ratings, all fueled by the rise of a once-in-a-generation player whose every move is broadcast worldwide. And if that player gets injured, or worse, walks away, because the league can't be bothered to keep her safe, then every executive in that office deserves the fallout. Stephanie White put it best. The game has changed. The players have evolved. But the officiating has not. And if the WNBA wants to survive this new era,